Oh, the marshmallow's still up. I have to fix that. Also, why is chat not right? What the heck? Hold on, let me fix this. Remnants of last OniMon. Yeah, sorry, I didn't clean my room, I guess, before you arrived. Hold on. I didn't clean my room. Messy. There we go. Anyway. Where is the... There you go. Luckily, I name all of my sources so I know where to get rid of them. Okay. Dang, you know you live like this? I sure do. Anyways, Hanaki, did you know that our souls are connected by fate? Well, what do you know? I'm Yuno Hanaki from Production Kawaii's Hanamizuki. Good afternoon. Let me go over here. Hi. What up? You know. I had a good rest day yesterday, so now, I'm here. It's been nice not having to break my back with all of the cleaning I was doing before. I am now no longer breaking my back, so that's pretty fun. So that feels pretty good. Today was much more, online work focused rather than offline struggles, so that was nice. That was nice. They still haven't shown up to inspect our place, by the way. Is that even going to happen anymore? I don't think so. Lord. Anyways, hi! Welcome to OniMon, otherwise known as Onigashima Monday. If this is your first time here, Onigashima Monday, or OniMon for short, is a weekly stream that I do every Monday in the Onigashima time zone, where I talk about stuff. Usually we have a theme, sometimes we don't, sometimes I get off topic and then there is no longer a theme. Generally we're pretty good about staying on topic, wouldn't you agree, guys? Wouldn't you agree? Maybe it was scheduled for 2025. I will scream if so. Yeah, we're alright. Sure. Dang, that's crazy. Why can't you just agree with me? Rude. Yuno is good at staying on topic. Chad is bad at staying on topic. Agreed. I do think that that's usually the problem. Alright, so... I am sure... we are all here for one reason only, and that is the topic of today's Onigashima Monday, which is... hypnotism. Feels weird saying the word. But yeah, it's about hypnotism today. This was a donation incentive from a previous endurance stream. So we're going to be opening up that can and talking a little bit about what I know about hypnosis. So, I guess a little bit of background about how I became interested in hypnotism. So I've always kind of had a fascination with it. There were movies and like other pieces of media that I watched and consumed growing up that kind of like fed into this interest. It was always kind of a passing interest at first. I didn't really think too deeply into it. But then later as I got older, particularly around the time of the panini that took place a few years ago, if you know, you know. Around that time, I was desperately looking for, like, a hobby. I I shouldn't say a hobby, but I guess more like just stuff to research, like things that I could just do to occupy my time because I didn't have anything to do. Long story short, I stumbled upon hypnotism stuff again, and I basically just dove head first, and I did a bunch of learning. And so, I ended up becoming quite knowledgeable on the subject. At least I would say so, that I did. But yeah, it was, something that occupied my attention for a while. I got really, really interested in it. I got really interested in, practicing it. And yeah, so that ended up becoming something that was a big fascination of mine. It is still a pretty big fascination, but because of how busy I am these days, I haven't really been able to practice it in the same way, but I still have retained all of my knowledge. So, yeah. That's why I thought it would be fun to talk about it. I think an important place to start when it comes to talking about hypnotism with other people is to kind of get a feel for what they think hypnosis is. So now I can open up the floor to other people's opinions on what they think hypnosis is, and we can kind of go from there. Is it subliminal messaging? No. Subliminal messaging is different. Subliminal messaging is a form of what is known as NLP, which is a neural language practice. NLP also means a few other things if you try to look up the specific abbreviation, but specifically within the context of this sphere, I would say that subliminal messaging is more NLP. Not MLP, N. NLP. Neural language practice. So basically what that means is it's a specific way of talking and presenting your opinions and things like that, in a way that kind of, directly affects the brain. Nay, little pony, shut up! Please! Work with me here. So would that cover suggestion? Suggestion, sort of. A little bit. Is it something you can get a license for, like being a therapist, or is it not that serious? You can get a license for hypnotism. You also can get a license for NLP. NLP is considered different. A lot of people who have licenses in NLP go on to become motivational speakers, or just like public speakers in general, because they learn specific techniques that can get their words into another person's brain a bit more easily. It's very effective for marketing. But yeah, you can get a license in hypnosis itself. There are courses available that you can take to get a license. And then there's like hypnotherapy, which is like leading more into the therapist side of things. The NLP to MLM pipeline. Unfortunately, yeah. NLP has a bit of a bad rap because of how often people utilize it in MLMs and things like that. But yeah. My only experience is seeing those group ones on video where they do silly stuff. How much of that is just pressure to not ruin the show and play along? There actually is a specific term for that. Yes. Hold on. I have to remember what the term is. There was a specific term, that I remember learning in relation to that. But yeah, I can't think of the word right now. I don't want to spend too much time Googling. But, like, stage hypnosis in particular does cover a specific, it's like its own kind of branch. There's a lot of debate about whether or not a stage hypnosis show is real or fake because of that sort of psychological phenomenon of wanting to go along with the crowd. I I would still say that it's a mix of things. I do think that when you're trying to put on a show, quote unquote, for a crowd, you are more likely to go along with things just by nature of wanting to follow along with what everyone else is doing. It's kind of like that crowd mentality of like, if everyone else is doing it, I should do it. But I think that it can still be considered like a real thing that is occurring despite that. I imagine word choice is very important for all forms of this. Yes, a good majority of good and proper hypnosis relies a lot on wordplay, and specifically on, you know, patterns of words that are appealing to the ear. Depending on the medium that you're using, usually audio is kind of the way to go, or like verbal. Verbal, like direct conversation. But some people do use written text. You can also use a lot of like visuals, but even with the visuals, you still utilize specific words. It plays off of a lot of a person's initial associations with particular words. So you play off of the association that you have with several kinds of words, and you just kind of, depending on the style that you're using, we haven't even gotten there yet, but depending on the style of hypnotic induction that you're doing, that will kind of influence the types of words that you use. I went to a stage hypnotist once, and they started by screening the whole audience for who would be good subjects. People who wouldn't work well with it just don't get called up, I think. I think I would agree with that. That said, anybody can be hypnotized. It's just that you have to find the modality that works for you. For example, some people might not be able to experience a trance if there are only visuals. Some people might not be able to do it purely through listening to someone try and guide them through it. Some people might actually need physical touch in order to experience a trance more strongly. It all depends on an individual person. It's kind of similar to how, like, people learn things differently. I think that people experience hypnosis differently. So there's certain kinds of modalities that you would then have to try and, like, experiment with to find out what would work best for you. Although I will say, as a disclaimer, I'm not going to talk too much about the therapy side of hypnotism because I am a hobbyist. I didn't get a license in hypnotherapy, and I feel like I should leave that to the professionals. I know a little bit more about the more casual side of things. I think some would call it the recreational side of hypnotism. So I will not be delving too much into therapy or, like, specific, like, therapy talks and things like that, because that's just not, I don't feel as if I am educated enough on the subject of the therapy side to be able to discuss the therapy stuff. Anyone? I always assumed they'd have to be at least be non-resistant to the idea, similar to therapy. No, it's still anyone, I would say. It's more like, how do I explain this? I do agree that you have to not resist the idea. If you go into it being like, well, I can't be hypnotized, my brain is very strong, and I will not fall for your tricks, you charlatan, then obviously, you're probably not going to experience it, but also, that's why I say anyone can be, not that anyone will be. If you choose to accept it, then yeah, I think you can be hypnotized. If you choose to believe in it, I think that it can work. A lot of the time, when I used to work more directly with subjects, I would often just say that, like, you can't come into it with too negative a mindset of, like, oh, this isn't gonna work, or this didn't work before, it's not gonna work now. Because a lot of it is collaborative. I don't think people realize just how collaborative the hypnosis experience can really be. I assume it works with people who are open-minded. Yeah, you have to be open-minded. I also think it works really well if you, as a potential subject, have a good imagination. You know how sometimes when you're watching a movie or you're reading a book or something and you kind of, there's like a plot point that happens and you're like, oh, that's not really believable. There's that idea of suspension of disbelief where, like, yeah, it's clearly an unbelievable plot point, but you choose to just, like, let it rock because you want to see what happens. I think that's something else that's important for being able to experience hypnotism. You have to have that suspension of disbelief where it's like, I don't think this is gonna work, but why don't you just get rid of that and try to just go along with it? If you allow yourself to go along with the ride, you will be surprised how much you actually enjoy it. Knowing is half the battle. Fear of hypnosis is definitely a thing and a big barrier. This is very true. A lot of people are scared of what they perceive hypnosis to be. That's why I was asking what everyone's initial perception of hypnosis is. Because usually, when I ask that question to people, I get things like, a big, evil person twirling their mustache while they swing a pocket watch in front of me and make me, commit crimes. That's a big misconception. Hypnotism cannot make you commit a crime. The only reason that that could work to get you to commit a crime is if, you yourself, on a subconscious level, would be willing to commit the crime. And then also, you would have to really trust the hypnotist that you're working with. So a stranger cannot come up to you, hypnotize you, and then make you commit a crime. Unless you're already a criminal. Yeah, exactly. It can't make you do anything that you wouldn't normally want to do, I think is a important thing to say. Well, okay. That's a gray area. Depending on the person, some people are more willing to go along with those kinds of suggestions because of their perception of hypnotism in their minds. But that's where we get into the argument of hypnosis is not mind control. Hypnosis and mind control are two different things. The cliche is mind control, but my perception is, I guess, lowered inhibitions. Yeah. I would say that people do kind of assume that it's lowered inhibitions, and that can also cause a bit of fear. There are several people who are, I don't want to say uptight, but, like, they are very guarded, and the idea of letting any of that guard down in order to experience, a hypnotic trance and some of the silly shenanigans that can happen when you are hypnotized, that can be a barrier for some people. But it's just kind of a matter of trust at that point. You have to trust the person that's working with you to be able to take care of you in that state, because it is pretty vulnerable. How is my pizza example wrong? Because you literally described subliminal messaging, which is you were literally describing how advertisements work. That is not hypnotism. That's NLP, which is neural language practices, which is an adjacent part of the hypnosis sphere, but you were literally just explaining NLP. That's not hypnotism. That's why it's wrong. Hypnotism is different from that. And that's why I don't agree. OniMon 15 all about NLP? Oh my gosh. I don't know if I know enough about NLP to be able to do that. But yeah, so, if I were to come up with a definition of hypnotism, I would refer to it as, a process that can bring your subconscious forward. Because a lot of it is, kind of letting your conscious mind, the one that is more protective? I don't know, the one that's more aware. It's basically turning some of your awareness off. Like someone in chat said, to kind of, like, relax your inhibitions. And then the subconscious, which is the more vulnerable side of your overall mindscape. it's allowing that side to come more forward and like kind of working with that side of your brain more. That's why it feels more like you have less control in that state, because the subconscious is like a innate desire to do something. Like, it's more, if you consciously think of doing something, right? Like, I'm going to consciously pick up my water bottle right now. It's because I want to take a drink of water. Versus a subconscious desire would be, I am talking and I'm like rambling about something unrelated, but then I end up picking up my water bottle without drinking. That's a subconscious desire. Basically, I feel that hypnotism brings the subconscious out more directly and allows it to have more direct control of the brain, which is why a lot of it feels more, or I guess less thought out, more instinctual. In my experience, it's kind of like in trance, doing suggested things kind of feels more fun, but it's hard to explain. Yeah, it's making you less guarded. Like, it's hard to explain it in more specific details than that, but it really is just like talking to the subconscious side of your brain and being like, hey, wouldn't it be fun if you tried XYZ? And then that side of your brain is like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, let's do that. It's a very chill experience, I think. Well, it can be, depending on the person and depending on the environment. I'm assuming trance can't be achieved in high-stress situations. Yes and... I would say, generally, no. I think if you were very stressed out, it would be difficult for you to experience trance. However, some people seek out hypnotic trances when in those particular mental states, and for some people it can allow the experience of a trance to be more impactful. So, like, it's kind of a little of A and a little of B. It depends on your personal mental state, like your personal brain. There are shock inductions. I mean, yeah, but sometimes, depending on a person's brain, a shock induction might not work. But then we're getting into the different types of inductions. We're still not there. We're still trying to explain what hypnosis really is. We're not there yet. We have to get into the different parts of the hypnotic experience before we can talk about inductions. Even though I love talking about inductions. Ugh, inductions are so cool. Someone I know had mentioned that trance worked as a stress reliever for them since they could temporarily turn off their constant overthinking. Yeah, it's turning off the conscious side of your overthinking. That part of your brain turns off, and it becomes all about what the subconscious does, and the subconscious is the thing that's, like, constantly looking out for you. And then... how do I explain it? Like, the subconscious is the part that's, like, always looking out for you. But it's always on, like, that lower level. The conscious mind is the one that does the overthinking. So when you hypnotize someone and you turn that conscious mind off, or, like, let them kind of quiet for a bit, that's what gets rid of the overthinking. Have you mentioned if you can hypnotize us? I could, in theory. I probably won't do that today because this is intended to just be a discussion about things that I know. But it is possible. A state of relaxation, fixation, and suggestion is what I say hypnosis is. I think that's fair. I think that's a combination of the three states that summarizes it pretty well. How much control is there? Like, if they no longer consented 1 hour in, is it difficult to come out of the trance willingly? No. I don't think so. There are fail-safes within the subconscious that will protect you. Like, for example, if I were to hypnotize you right now, right? And then I told you, to, like, take a weapon and go rob a bank. Obviously, you'd be like, no. What the hell are you suggesting, you know? And you would snap out of it, like, immediately. And be like, hey, why would you even say something like that? So, like, the brain kind of knows, like, what it will and will not accept. One could argue that certain forms of hypnotism can, like, coerce you into doing something you wouldn't normally do, but that's why you have to really trust the person that you're working with. It's very difficult to actually experience a full hypnotic trance from someone that you don't trust in that way. That's why if you're looking to be hypnotized, you have to make sure you're getting it from a reputable source. Have you ever been hypnotized? I have. I have been on both sides of the pocket watch, as it were. I prefer to be the one doing the swinging of the pocket watch, personally. But I have experienced both sides. I think it's valuable to experience both at least once or twice. Because it helps you experience the other side. Excuse me, I'm doing so much talking. I love this topic a lot, which is why I ramble for literally forever. I'm gonna be drinking a lot of water. How necessary is the finger snap to wake up? Basically not at all. I think people assume that it's necessary. Like, the sudden sound is really the thing that works. You could technically wake someone up with, like, a clap rather than a snap. You could also just do it by, like, talking them up slowly. A lot of times in hypnotism, one of the more common methods of counting someone down is to, entering trance. It's another form of induction, kind of, but, like, you count someone down, like, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, sleep, or whatever. So another way to wake someone up, or to use an awakener, is to do the reverse, where you count up. So technically you could just count to 10, and that could also wake somebody up without having to do any sort of loud noise thing. You could also just, like, tell somebody to wake up. If they're an experienced subject, you could probably just tell them to wake up, and then they would. What was the pipeline like for Panini? Learn about hypnosis, trying it. So, I was very shy. Basically, I experienced the Panini, and then I was doing research on hypnotism just because I was curious about it, and then that's how I discovered text-based hypnotism, and I was like, now hold on. I quite like writing. You're telling me that there's a form of hypnotism that relies on writing? So I did a lot of research on that side of it, and I got really good at written inductions. I got really good at writing out kind of like scripts for hypnotists to follow when it comes to hypnotizing subjects. I also just, like, am really good at writing hypnosis-based prose. Because I'm a very strong writer, that's kind of how I first started. It took a while before I ever reached a point where I would be willing to experiment with anything besides writing. But that was kind of my initial experience anyway. Yuno Hanaki Wattpad Hypno Induction links. Never on Wattpad. You will never catch me using Wattpad for anything ever. You can do it with writing, you know, son of a beach, I'm in. Literally, though. Do you still write inductions to keep in practice? Not as much as I used to. I mentioned this earlier, but, I have since kind of fallen out of practice. I haven't really had the time. It's been really hard. But I do, I keep my finger on the pulse of, like, the community at the very least. I will, like, read other people's work and kind of, like, internalize and, like, learn new things as new discoveries come in. That's the thing about hypnotism, too, is that it's constantly... Our understanding of it is constantly growing and changing, because it's a very new... Some people call it a pseudoscience, but, like... It's a very new field. So there are things about it that were established a long time ago that now are, different or dismissed. It's an ever-growing craft? Yeah, basically. For example, when I first started learning, people used to care a lot about, suggestibility, which is the idea of measuring how well you would take to suggestions when in a trance. But now that kind of thing basically has been dismissed as impossible to measure. There isn't a way to really understand, a person's suggestibility. Like, you could tell that someone is suggestible, but you can't really measure it. You can't be like, oh, that person is absolutely suggestible. They would fall for every little thing I do. Because there used to be a big, focus on things called suggestibility tests. Nowadays, they're mostly just kind of used for fun. But people used to think that those tests specifically were, like, the way to know if you could hypnotize someone. Those have since been dismissed. There's also, the argument of depth. Whether or not you can truly measure how deeply someone is, hypnotized based on, like, certain physical factors. That has also kind of been debunked at this point because people just experience a trance differently. So, what may look like a light, trance depth experience to someone could actually be a quite deep trance, and you just don't really know because you're not, like, completely in that person's head. The funny fingers pressed to get each other test? Yes, the finger magnets. And the floating arm. The floating arm is another classic one. How deep are you in trance? About 3 meters-ish? Yeah, like, it was just... There's just a realization that you can't really measure that. And like I said, people will experience trance differently, depending on the person in question, so, yeah. I'm surprised there isn't, like, a tier list of commands. Well, that's the thing. A person's subconscious mind is so unique and variable between each individual person that, like, even if I were to run through a list of basic commands, some of you would obey it and some of you wouldn't. And then even at, like, the higher tiers, there would still be a mix of some who would and some who wouldn't. It's not, like, set in stone at all. So that's why it's kind of hard to, like, fully talk about it, because, there's just a lot of it that's not, fully measurable. No two people will be susceptible to the same thing. Indeed. Do you find yourself judging hypnosis portrayals in media now? All the time. All the damn time. I'm surprised not a lot of people brought up their experiences with hypnosis in media. I feel like that's where most of the perceptions of hypnosis come from, and I can usually tell which media you're referencing when you bring it up. But yeah, no, all the damn time. Every time hypnosis shows up in something, I either... Okay, well, my first response is excitement, because I feel like not enough people use the hypnosis or mind control trope in media anymore, and it makes me sad. But then secondly, I'm always, like, judging how it works, and sometimes I'm playfully like, oh, well, that wouldn't work in real life, but yeah, obviously. That's the point. I'm usually watching a fictional media. I try Hypothesis, didn't work with me. Well, maybe you should try Hypnosis next time, rather than Hypothesis. Then you have what some call the SDL state, which is, like, supposedly the deepest state of hypnosis. Supposedly. Allegedly. But that's the thing. I was just talking about how you can't really measure depth. So even that isn't really approvable state. I sometimes refer to hypnosis as subtle recommendation. Well, that's why it's incorrect, because again, your argument was about the pizza advertisement. You're just talking about NLP. That's not the same thing as hypnotism. I will reiterate, not the same. I had a teacher's assistant in school who had people ask them to put them in exam mode. No idea if it worked for them or not. Personally, I stayed far away from that. Interesting. I mean, yeah, some people would argue that hypnosis is just a heightened state of focus. There is a chance that that could be, like, what exam mode was for that person. That said, I don't know if I would really be willing to take an exam while in a hypnotic state. Because, like, I mean, I guess it could bring out, like, latent knowledge from your subconscious memory, but I don't know if I trust myself to write coherently. I can hear the passion in your words. Yeah, this is a subject I get very heated about. I just imagine two college dudes trying to hypnotize each other. How deep are you, bro? Pretty shallow, bro. Pretty shallow. I mean, that's the thing. You can't really ask. I mean, you can try to ask the subject while they are hypnotized, like, how deep they feel that they are. But, like, there's also arguments about whether or not you can measure it with numbers. Some people, like, their definition of a 10, for example, if we go back to my 1 through 10 scale, some people's measurement of a 10 looks different from other people's description, or other people's perception of a 10. And then also, like, your 8 or your 9 could be, like, kind of interchangeable depending on the experience of the trance that you're having. So really, like, measuring depth can be very, very hard. As a VTuber on a stream, are your options limited for chat hypnosis? Kind of, yes. Mostly because I can't gauge whether or not you're actually hypnotized. It can be kind of hard. When you're working with, like, text, you have to, like, have a very strong trust that people are not lying. Because you guys could easily just go into chat and be like, yes, am deep, you know? Like, you could easily just say that to me, and I would just have to take you at face value. So I would trust you to be correct, to be accurate when you're saying that to me. You could very easily just, like, pretend, which is the problem with, one-way trances. You'd see. Messed up. Short answer, ye. But yeah, like, am hypnotized RN. Yeah, literally, you could easily just say that. You could just be like, I'm very, yep, I am being hypnotized, and then you would just fuel my ego, and I would never know that you're lying to me. So, it can be difficult just in this particular medium. And, like, it's not like I don't trust you guys, but there has to be a level of trust there for me to, like, know that you're not lying. Is that what happens to VTubers when they model these things? They get tranced for a bit. They just kind of freeze in place. They're just like, oh man. I mean, I suppose so. It kind of mimics the idea a little bit. You know, have you hypnotized your audience already? No. Not in this stream. Oh, that reminds me though, there's another there's another way I kind of describe what hypnotic state feels like. Have you ever been reading a really, really good book? Or conversely, if you're not a reader, have you ever been on a drive that you are very familiar with? Like you know the route basically by hand, and so it kind of allows you to like zone out for a while? That in itself is a form of a trance state. I wouldn't say it's directly like you are hypnotized, but that is kind of the state that hypnosis pulls you into. That's why I feel that text hypnosis works very well, because it plays off of that idea of getting lost in a really good book, so you get lost within somebody's writing. Yeah, highway hypnosis. It has an actual term. But yeah, if you're able to get very immersed while you read a story to the point where like you lose track of everything going on around you, that is a form of a trance. Same with driving. When you have that sort of like highway hypnosis moment because you're so used to the path, it just kind of becomes second nature. That's also a form of trance state. Bro, I'm going to time you out because you keep talking about NLP. You have to understand you're not talking about what you think you're talking about. Into the corner. Never experienced that? That's fair. But it's things like that where you're doing something kind of like on autopilot. Maybe if you're like cooking a familiar recipe, or what's another example? But things like that, basically things that are second nature to you, or maybe like your morning routine when you're first getting up, something that you just kind of do automatically. That is a form of trance state. Sort of. Would highway trance also be when you drive and autopilot a turn when the GPS is telling you the actual way to go? No, I don't think so. It's more like a second nature thing. The GPS is considered like a third party in that. I don't think that's the same. Highway hypnosis is a good example of time dilation. You seem to arrive without realizing it. Indeed. It is a very good example. Because one of the other things about hypnotism is that you lose track of time when you are hypnotized. Because, like, your awareness of everything just kind of disappears. Well, you don't have, like, a conscious awareness. Your subconscious is aware. But, like, you don't really realize how much time is passing until it's over. And that goes both ways. Like, while a subject will very much experience time dilation, the person hypnotizing you or your hypnotist can also experience it. There have been times where I have worked with people and I don't realize that like 2 hours have passed. So then when we wrap up, I'm just like, oh, that's crazy. Anyways. I tend to do it when walking to places too. I'm too stressed while driving for it to happen while driving. Also fair. Yeah, see, that's why it's different for an individual person. That was a great 30-minute trip. 4 hours? Yeah, literally. But yeah, I was saying this earlier, but you would be surprised how much of hypnotism goes both ways during a hypnotic session. As much as people think that it's like one person just like hypnotizing the other, and so only one person is experiencing it, it's actually a shared experience in a lot of ways. I mean, the hypnotist will usually be the one that has their tether on how do I talk? They will usually have a tether in the real world that is stronger than the subject, but they will often, the hypnotist will also be often going on the same kind of journey with them. It's a shared experience. That's why you have to have that level of trust with the person that you're working with. Well, a level of trust, and you also have to see the person hypnotizing you as an authority figure. So actually, to that end, I don't know if I could hypnotize you guys, because I don't know if you respect me as an authority figure.
May the Oni Lights guide you back to me.
Oh, thank you for becoming a member! Welcome to the Oni Lights. Who wants to trance at a 3 in the morning stream? Oh boy, 3 a.m. Literally, though. Yeah, journey is a good word. You're both going, but one of you is handling the directions. Agreed. We respect our tiny hypnotist. You better. Because if a situation ever comes around where where we're gonna work with that, you gotta respect me, okay? You gotta respect me. Okay. So we have kind of a handle on what it is-ish. We could ramble about what it is all day, but, we should probably go a little bit into the actual process, huh? It's all fun and anarchy until Yuno pulls out the spiral background. No. Like I said, that won't be today. I'm just going into the discussion of it. But okay, so technically, we can once again say that the actual process of a hypnosis session varies depending on the people in question. But generally, you're always going to start with pre-talk. Pre-talk is where you're kind of establishing what is going to happen during the session. It's going to be like, I am going to hypnotize you using this method. We are going to do XYZ while you are in this hypnotic state. And then I am going to bring you out of the hypnotic state. Often just talking about hypnosis and like things related to it can cause people to kind of get primed into a hypnotic trance. It's it's kind of like a form of some people do use pre-talk as a form of induction. Induction is the term for the modality that you use to bring someone into a trance. There are lots of different kinds of inductions. You would be surprised just how many there are. I don't even think I can name all of them. But there are some very common ones that we can talk about a bit briefly. Although I love talking about inductions. So honestly, I could ramble about inductions for another hour. Okay, so the one that most people associate with, I think the one that's most commonly associated with hypnotism in terms of, like, the media is eye fixation induction. So basically, the idea of an eye fixation, that's where we get into our pocket watches, or as we were joking a little bit ago, our spirals. Things that the eye has to look at directly for a period of time. It doesn't have to be super long, but something that the eyes will look at or fixate on for a period of time until they feel tired. Usually the hypnotist will be describing that sensation of your eyes getting tired looking at something for so long, and like the feeling of each blink getting heavier and heavier, things of that nature. That's kind of what an eye fixation induction is. It draws on the natural feeling of your eyes getting tired from looking at something, like from looking at a visual stimulus. How long do you think it needs to be? It could be anywhere from like 5 minutes-ish. I would say 5 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, maybe a little bit shorter, depending on how primed you were beforehand. Yuno has the perfect eyes to stare into. It's over for us. Yeah. So eye fixation can literally be with anything, but it can even particularly work just with eyes. It would be like having a staring contest with me, right? And naturally, You would want to keep staring for as long as you could. You wouldn't want to blink. I would be telling you to focus on, like, the color of my eyes, maybe, like, noticing something in a particular corner, the way they're sparkling, things like that. And you would just kind of stare for as long as you could, and I would be commenting on things like, oh, your blinking is getting slower and slower, that must mean you're getting tired. Or things like, my eyes are just so pretty, it's hard to look away. You can't focus on anything besides how pretty my eyes are. That kind of stuff. So you could do it just with your eyes themselves. You could also do it with a finger. You could have your finger moving back and forth in front of somebody's face. You could also, like, spin it in, like, a spiral pattern if you wanted someone to follow that. Basically, you could do it with, like, any kind of body part that you can move in that way. I would say generally 5 minutes is kind of a good time to establish it. But really, you can kind of tell. If you're working with someone in person, you can kind of tell that it's working. So you can kind of just gauge from there. Having a specific time in mind should never be something that you do, because otherwise it will get too formulaic, and that's a bit boring. So you want to try to keep it interesting. Does it have to move? Jewelry is also good too. This is true. Like I said, this is just talking about, like, parts of the body. You can also do it with jewelry. You can also do it with, like, other things. That's why I brought up pocket watches. Pocket watches are a big thing in media. Because the other thing about pocket watches is that it plays off of the rhythmic sound of ticking. If you're using a pendulum or a pendant or something of that nature that you can swing back and forth, there is a certain rhythm to it that is considered very entrancing. The ticking also helps. We love the sound of rhythmic ticking in this house. It's also why piano metronomes are a really good form of hypnotic pendulum, because you can set the beat, and then it will tick back and forth depending on the beat. Stationary things just above eye level are also good. This is also true. That's kind of where spirals come in, I think. Like, a spiral would just be staying in place, but it would be spinning. If you just stare into the center for a while, that will tire out your eyes. If you don't have anything like that, you could tell someone to stare at the wall a little bit, like, just above eye level for a period of time, and then just talk to them while they are staring at that spot, and that will also make their eyes tired, because, again, it plays off of the natural phenomenon of your eyes getting tired from staring at something without blinking for a long period of time. So technically anything could work. So yeah, eye fixation, I think, is one of the, if not the most popular methods that is used within like, most media. Do you have a personal fave focus for eye fixation, both as hypnotist and as subject? I've always loved pendants. I really like the fact that pendants, you know, like pendant necklaces, I like the jewels. Sparkly jewels are nice. That's usually my favorite. So like crystals, jewels, things like that. Pretty things. Writing down anything shiny. Basically, I am like a crow. I love shiny things. Okay. Alright, so, the next thing that I think is one of the more common forms of hypnotic induction is the relaxation induction, which someone brought up, well, specifically progressive muscle relaxation. So progressive muscle relaxation inductions, or just generally relaxation inductions, it's the idea of, usually in those instances the subject will close their eyes, just kind of from the get-go, but it's the idea of, like, laying back and focusing on relieving tension in all parts of the body. So, like, it'll usually start from the feet, and it'll talk about relaxation spreading from, like, your toes up to, like, the rest of your foot, and like basically walking you through the parts of your body and like mimicking the feeling of like relieving tension there. You're not literally like shaking out your hands to get rid of tension or like rolling your shoulders back, but it's the idea of like, think about your knees. Think about the soreness in your knees and think about like squeezing it really, really, really tight and then letting it go. And then wow, suddenly you don't really feel the tension in your knees anymore. It's stuff like that. And then it just goes all the way through the body until it gets to like the head. And then at the end of that, usually your body will be considered completely relaxed, and that will be the trance. Or when the trance starts. It probably helps if the person has an ASMR-like voice. Yes, if you are a person that wants to experience... How do I word this? Yeah, generally when you are hypnotizing, you do enter a particular tone of voice. A form of advice that I always give to people who want to, like, discover how to talk during a trance in order to actually sound hypnotic, talk in your singing voice. You'd be surprised what a shift that is. So, like, if you sing a note that's in your comfortable range, right? Well, for me, I'm just gonna hum it real quick, but like, if I talk somewhere right around here, you can already tell that there's a drastic shift in how I'm talking. It's more melodic, it's softer, it's a little bit more reserved. And then there's that slight musicality that's more appealing to listen to. It's already much different from how I talk, right? See? It's like a shift like that. And then, you know, you could also experiment with changing pitch if you wanted to speak a little bit lower. But generally, the best advice to, like, quickly get to your hypnotist voice, TM, would be, talking in your singing voice. Find a note that is comfortable and then just talk in that same tone. But yeah, that's kind of why people say that ASMR-like voices are pretty good for hypnosis. It's because they're already kind of like whispering, so it's already a pretty soft tone of voice. Then the only thing you really have to shift is like the rhythm and like the musicality within your voice. Because one of the big things about hypnosis is rhythm. The more you know. Some people do feel that that like audio-based or like listening to things is kind of like the better way to enter a trance for them. Closing your eyes in those instances really heightens the other senses. So it will also really heighten the experience of listening to somebody talk you into trance if your eyes are closed. You're telling me that dumbass jungle snake was doing it correctly? Look, there's a reason that a lot of people first discover an interest in hypnotism through that snake. I mean, I'm not into the snake, but like the techniques are there. I'm telling you, they must have had somebody on the Jungle Book team who understood hypnosis on a very deep level in order for it to be as successful as it was. I swear, dude. Like, it was too good. Grim. Trust me, I don't like the snake either. His Winnie the Pooh voice is kind of sing-song. Uh-huh, see, you're understanding. You're getting the idea. Remember during my endurance stream, I said I had a lot of thoughts about Ka the Snake. Here they are. Hi, Nami! Hi, Hiroji. Welcome in, Raiders. Today we are talking about hypnotism. I'm going through the different steps of, what it's like to experience a hypnotic trance. Yeah. Hope you guys had a good stream. Are you able to beat Persona yet? Did you beat Persona 3 yet? I'm curious. I know it was titled, Reaching the End, but did you beat it? Hello, Buno. Hello. That's me. I am in fact Buno. Not yet, dang. Got 2 girlfriends today? Okay, well, technically that means you did beat it. This game just does not end, bro. It is a pretty long game, so I would agree with that assessment. Although I would argue that because you got 2 girlfriends, that means you are in fact beating the game. I would say that is pretty epic. Okay, where was I? Right, I was talking about audio-based stuff. So audio inductions are, you know, more focused on, like, the voice primarily. Could also be, like, using music. Some people do find it to be more relaxing to have music playing while experiencing a hypnotic induction. I'm not one of those people. I'm fine with just a voice. He also jumped in for the last line to be prepared. Not even just the last line. He was there for, like, the last 20 seconds. Basically after You Won't Get a Sniff Without Me, where the original actor blew his voice out, that's where Jim Cummings stepped in. So he was there for the rest of the song after that, which I think was, like, second verse onwards. Really good, hidden vocal there. Heck yeah. Let's see, what else? The range on that guy, he's pretty good. That's what it's like to be a professional voice actor. Someday that will be me. Someday. Okay, thinking. So we went over eye fixation, we went over relaxation, we talked a little bit about audio. There's more like kinesthetic inductions that are like based more on like physicality. That's where like touch comes into play. There's also forms of we talked a little bit about shock inductions, right? We could talk about that. So shock or surprise inductions is basically the idea of I'm trying to word this. You get someone to do an automatic action, which is, you know, going back to that argument of like conscious/subconsciously doing something. When you get someone to do a subconscious action, you take advantage of that, and in that split second of that subconscious state being active, you pull that forward and make them enter trance. So, the most common example of this is with a handshake. So, if you're talking to someone and you hold out your hand, they will automatically reach their hand out to shake yours. And then in that action of shaking hands with them, you can pull them forward and tell them to enter trance, usually by saying like sleep or some other trigger phrase. And that will usually, because of the surprise of the subconscious being pulled forward like that, it will usually work and snap them into trance. That's a surprise induction. That sounds dangerous. I don't think a surprise induction would really work on a stranger. There are videos that exist online of people claiming that they were able to just hypnotize strangers with a handshake like that, but I don't think it literally works unless you trust the person. Just like that with no previous preparation. Yes, with no previous preparation, but again, that's where trust and rapport has to come in. Like, you have to trust the person who's shaking your hand like that, I think. I don't think it would work if it was a stranger. I personally think that you would have to have rapport with the person in order for that to work. I say the word rapport because, like, you have to have an established relationship with the person in question. It doesn't have to be a romantic one. You just have to be able to, like, trust them and also see them as an authority figure. And that's kind of like a good rapport. Hypothetically, I could hypnotize my homie if I dap him up. Hypothetically, yes. Although, I think your homie would be a little bit confused. There's also things called, like, overload inductions, where you purposefully overload a person's senses until they kind of brain fry, and then that puts them into the trance. That kind of thing. I like overload inductions a lot. When I'm working with people via text, I do a lot of overloading. That's because I'm a fast typer, as you guys know. I'm a fast typer. I am a spam messenger type. I have often been told that that's a form of overload. That one also sounds dangerous. It's not that dangerous. Like I said, it doesn't really work as well if it's someone you don't trust. And, like, the thing is, the hypnotist has to know, the hypnotist will have an understanding of, like, safety and, like, what, will work best on a person. So, like, I'm explaining all of these different options, right? Like, if you think that something is dangerous, that means it won't work on you. So, like, if I explain overload and you're just like, oh no, dangerous, then like, if I tried to do an overload induction on you specifically, your brain would be like, oh, I don't like that, that's dangerous, and then it just wouldn't work. So don't worry, it wouldn't, like, it's not something that would literally work on you immediately, just because I'm bringing it up, but yeah. Let's see. I think those are the most, common ones that I can think of. Is that why people who volunteer to get hype on stage are more likely to get hypnotized? Kind of. A little bit. Like, it means that they trust the person as an authority figure. If the stage hypnotist has, like, established themselves as, like, knowing what they're doing, I do think that that makes you more likely to enter an actual trance. But there's also just the phenomenon of going along with the crowd that a lot of people say is part of why stage hypnosis works. But they also do a lot of suggestibility tests during those performances. They'll make the participants go through, like, 2 or 3 suggestibility tests, and then that, like, basically gets them into the trance. Like, it kind of primes their brains a bit more easily. So I would say that some people during stage shows are genuine, while others, I think, might just be going along with it because they are on a stage. What about fractionation? Thought that would be a common one. Fractionation is a bit difficult to explain to new people. I also think it's difficult to experience as a new subject. But I can talk about it. Basically, fractionation is rapidly pulling someone in and out of a trance state. I usually do it via numbers, but basically, going back to our 1 to 10 scale, right? Fractionation would be purposefully sending someone to, like, okay, so let's assume that 10 is the quote-unquote deepest side of trance, and 1 is not hypnotized yet, right? So you're starting at 1, and then maybe I send you to, like, a 3 or a 4, and then maybe I send you to, like, an 8, and then maybe I send you to a 2, but then maybe I send you to a 6, and then maybe we go back to, like, a 5. Maybe we go to 9. Maybe I pull you back down to 3. Fractionation is going back and forth and basically ping-ponging you back and forth between hypnotized and not hypnotized until eventually, like, slamming you down into 10. So, like, the deepest possible level. I didn't know you couldn't count. Shut up! I was explaining the example! But that's kind of what fractionation is. Some people also do that with snapping. If you get... that's where we have to start talking about triggers. We're not there yet. We're taking so long to get through this, but it's because I just know so much about so many things. Yeah, it's basically down, up, down. And then just like experimenting with like the different sides of the depth until you actually pull someone down the rest of the way. But it's very hard to experience if you are not used to being hypnotized, because you would have to have an understanding of the different levels. But what I was going to say is, another way you could fractionate someone is if you plant a trigger where every time you snap your fingers or every time you like say a certain phrase or whatever, that brings them up and down, in and out of trance. That's another form of fractionation. I am actually incapable of snapping my fingers, so I can't give you an example. So I'll do it with clapping instead. Sorry you had to find this out about me, but my fingers literally do not snap. I know that's ironic considering I'm a hypnotist, but listen. Listen. I can't help it. I literally can't! You don't understand! I've tried. Okay, you're really gonna make me try? Okay, look. Literally nothing. See? Really nothing. I am snapping my fingers right now, but there's no freaking sound. Ah! Help me. I'm suffering. You really got the silenced fingers. Look, I literally watched so many tutorials that were like, here's how to snap your fingers. And every time I tried, can't do it. I'm doing it the exact way that they tell me to do it, and I can't. It doesn't snap. They don't snap. I actually have a story of, what's it called? There's a story of, like, being in a music class when I was younger. And, we had to snap our fingers to a song, and I couldn't do it. And they literally singled me out, and they were like, hey, Yuno, why can't you snap your fingers? And I was like, I don't know, I'm trying to do it like everyone else is, and it's not working. And so they made me sit there and do it, and they tried really hard to teach me how to do it, and then in the end, they just, they changed the exercise to clapping, because I couldn't snap to save my life, and that was embarrassing. It's so over! Baby Yuno suffered! Do you have soft hands? I do. I have very soft, delicate baby hands. I have been told that that could be partially why. Because, people who have, like, calluses tend to do better at snapping, allegedly. But no, I literally can't snap my fingers. It sucks. I actually have, like, a clicker. I'm not sure where it is. It's probably buried in my desk drawer somewhere because of this deep clean I just did. But I had, like, a clicker that I would use that like, kind of sounded like a snap, and I would just use that instead. Or just clapping. Clapping's also fine. Stop calling me a girl failure. I can't help it, okay? I can't help it! It's so over. This is embarrassing. Play the Nintendo Switch ad noise. Yeah, hold on. I'll just load that up real quick. Instead of snapping, just shout really loud. Yeah, it's just me in the middle of using my hypnotist voice, just like,
Okay, and then the next time you hear me shout, you're going to be pulled back out of trance. And when I shout again, you're going to be pulled back in. Are you ready?
Can you imagine? I click my tongue instead. Sometimes I move my fingers to try and trick people to think I can snap, but it barely works. That's hilarious. I guess clicking your tongue could also work. Just say the word snap like an onomatopoeia. I've done it like that as well. I've like written it out, and I've also like said the word snap out loud to kind of symbolize where I would be snapping if I could, if my fingers didn't suck the way that they are. Man, I've just been... Can't believe I had to expose that about myself. A nightmare! I hate this place. How's the clicker work? Oh, just the same way as, like, finger snapping would. It's just instead of you being conditioned to work with the snaps, you just work with the clicking. The clicker sounds pretty similar to finger snapping. I just can't find my clicker right now. It's probably in my desk drawer somewhere, but I don't want to go through all my stuff because I just deep cleaned and I don't want to take all my stuff out to find it because that would undo all my cleaning and then it'd be sad. So, yeah. But my clicker is in there somewhere. And here's where I would snap my fingers if I had them! Yeah, basically. Do you own any pocket watches? I do not, but I do own a few pendants. I want to get a pocket watch someday, but I want to get like a really pretty, fancy one. Coin on a string, gang. Honestly, coin on a string, underrated pendulum. You're right about that. But I do want to get like a fancy pocket watch someday. That would be a nice little treat for myself, I think. Thank you for the super chat. For just $5 a day, you too can support Snap Disabled VTubers. Please! Leave me alone! Thank you for the super chat. Would waste a perfectly good coin to punch a hole in it, though? Now, hold on. Some coins naturally have holes in them. I tried to use a stopwatch once, did not work. Yeah, stopwatches do not work the same way. Good attempt, though. I mean, technically, if the stopwatch is on a string, you could still swing it like a pendulum, but I feel like that would be a bit goofy. Do you have a spiral thing?
Thank you so much.
My eyes? For those of you who haven't seen, this expression, this is kind of the only thing I have right now. I don't have, like, a Yuno Hanaki branded spiral. But this is the closest thing I've got. Although you're supposed to use it to be, like, overwhelmed. Like, this is meant to be an overwhelmed expression. But, I mean, dual purpose. Dual purpose. Gotta use the points to make them spin. Honestly, pretty smart. I think it would be fun to make them spin. Maybe someday. Oh, I will rob a bank. No, please don't. No, please. Plausible deniability. I didn't do anything. I'm just chilling. I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. I didn't say anything. I'm just sitting here, minding my business. Would you prefer spiral eyes or color-changing eyes like honestly, the color-changing's kind of good.
Offering. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for the donations. Oh, I realized I forgot to adjust the donation bar too. I am silly. We are definitely not at 150 today. I should also probably change the goal back to 50. Dang. I forgot to clean this part of my room this entire time. Why didn't you guys tell me? You guys should have been like, Yuno, why is this part of your room still so messy? IDKY, but not being able to snap makes you more cute? Oh no. What do you mean by this? I just assumed people were so excited about Hypnosis that they prepaid half the gold bar. No, this was left over from Saturday. Endurance stream until Yuno learns how to snap. So you're gonna be here for the rest of your life and you're not allowed to leave, basically. Because that'll never happen! Are you spamming Yuno with compliments again? No. I need to get back on topic. But basically, yeah, so, induction methods. There's lots of them. The one that the hypnotist will use depends on the subject. Either the subject's personal understanding, or if the subject is new to hypnotism, they'll usually start with, like, the basic ones, like eye fixation or relaxation. And then, pull them into trance. And then the actual trance itself, okay. Stop calling my fingers mute. That's not how this works. What are you even talking about? I hate it here. Okay, so during the actual trance, that's usually where we get the... I'm going to say that it's like implanting suggestions, but, basically, when you're in the trance state, that is when the hypnotist can talk directly to your subconscious, and they can offer suggestions for how you're going to act going forward. There are a number of suggestions that you can be given in this state, whether it be a suggestion to do something, a suggestion to feel something. They can also plant things called hypnotic triggers. So a hypnotic trigger is something that can trigger you to re-enter a trance without having to go through an induction. So that's basically where we get to the thing that I was joking about, where it's like, when I snap my fingers, you will re-enter trance. And when I snap my fingers again, you will come out of trance. Basically, anything you tell your subconscious, if it is willing to accept that suggestion as fact, then that will be something that kind of, like, changes you going forward. That's why you want to discuss this kind of thing before pulling someone into trance, because once someone is actually hypnotized, consent is out the window because their brain is compromised. So, work with someone who will stick to specifically what they say before the trance, and then not change it. But yeah, long story short, you can do, like, a number of things while someone is in that suggestible state. And then technically you can quote-unquote wake them up, but they will still be under the effects of the trance and the triggers. The bank robbery trigger? No! There is no bank robbery trigger! Stop. Yeah, waking trance. That is what it is called. That's where, like, all of the triggers and things and, like, the suggestions are still active. Waking trance is kind of where you, like, experience it more, because your consciousness is, like, back, but you're still uninhibited. But yeah, that's kinda the gist of it. Can you uncompromise someone's brain, or is it just like that once you get them like that? Yes, what I was going to say is after you're done messing around with the triggers and things that you have implanted, unless you want them to remain permanent, in which you can, like, suggest that they remain permanent, you can then remove any effects that you don't want to have last outside of the hypnotic state. Then you use an awakener, and you have them come out of the trance state, and they will no longer be impacted by any of the triggers that you don't want them to be impacted by. It's the would you kindly thing, right? I mean, in theory, yes. I've never really heard anyone say would you kindly when it comes to an actual trance session. I've never heard that specific phrase used in real life, but yeah. Is that why Nintendo picked the snapping sound for their directs? Well, snapping gets a person's attention, right? I think that's more likely why, but it does do a little bit of a brain thing. Like, it tickles your brain in a certain way to get you to focus. So, sort of. The Would You Kindly is a Bioshock thing, I believe. I've never played Bioshock. Will you remember getting hypnotized? Generally, yes. Unless your hypnotist says that you're not going to remember something, which, again, establish trust before you do any sort of memory manipulation, because that's where it gets scary. Unless your hypnotist says that you're not going to remember that something was done during the session, you're generally always going to remember it. And you're going to come out of the trance, because someone asked how it feels after hypnosis. You're going to feel pretty good. It's going to be like you took a little nap, kinda. So I would say that it feels generally pretty good. For me, snapping makes my brain go, oh, I should pay attention to what the hypnotist says, so it works well for me when I'm being hypnotized. Yeah! It's like, it's just a way to get someone to pay attention, snapping. And then, like, when in a trance, you can kind of change that perception as well. To, like, suit your particular needs. Gets hypnotized, wakes up in prison. What happened? I mean, yeah, I guess technically you could make someone forget that they committed crimes. So then they wake up and are like, why am I in jail? However, I think at that point you would be separated from your hypnotist, so it might actually be kind of hard for you to wake up, unless it was on your own. But that's if we're getting into the, like, really extreme situations. We could argue that a situation like that would almost be more like the perception of mind control, which again is different from what hypnotism is. Hypnotism is just like, your subconscious being willing to follow a suggestion. Mind control is the idea that you can, like, take direct control of somebody's brain and make them do whatever you want them to do, regardless of whether or not they would want to do it. Now, depending on the perception of the dynamic between a hypnotist and a subject, you could get closer to the effect of mind control. It would not be literal, but you could get close to it, depending on the subject's perception. I tried getting hypnotized by a hypnotist before, but it didn't work, but I feel so embarrassed that I played along. There's nothing wrong with just playing along at first. There's a chance that the more you play along, the closer you'll get to actually experiencing it for real. So there's technically nothing wrong with that. However, that does probably just mean that the hypnotist didn't use a method that worked for you. It's important to, like, find someone who is willing to experiment and, like, change up what they do to try and get it to work for you. And I also think you should be honest with the person that you're working with and be like, hey, I went along with it in this moment, but it did not really work for me. Could we try something else? Communication is important. Your hypnotist will also thank you, because otherwise they're going to keep doing the things that you don't like. And you should make sure that you are having fun, because it needs to go both ways. Usually with hypnosis, most of what people do with making someone forget stuff is making them forget their name or forget a number. Yeah, that's for the more casual stuff, for sure. The more, like, recreational side. That's, like, stage hypnosis stuff. I personally think that memory play, or, like, memory manipulation like that is very difficult to do unless a subject really trusts and respects the hypnotist, or they already assume that that's something that hypnosis can do. Or, like, they have a good enough imagination to be able to simulate that experience. Because that's kind of what hypnosis is. Like, if you're changing things about, like, perception or memory, your brain will basically simulate what that experience would be like if it were true. So, like, for example, it would simulate what you would be like as a person if you did not remember the number 6, or what you would be like if you did not remember what your name was. If you're not able to imagine what that would be like for example, someone could be like, I could never forget my name, I love my name, then you would probably still remember your name, and that suggestion would not work. Meanwhile, there are some people who would be like, I know how to count to 10, I can't forget the order of numbers. And then it would be difficult for them to forget the number 6. However, if you have that suspension of disbelief that I talked about earlier, and you're willing to, like, imagine the experience, then you would be able to do both things. How absolute are these suggestions? Is it only as strong as the recipient is willing, and is it permanent? I think I'm thinking of some kind of myth and I'm unsure of what it is. Depending, okay, it is going to go back to trust. To answer this question, the more you trust your hypnotist, the more absolute the suggestion is in your mind. Because your subconscious is choosing to, like, fully believe whatever the hypnotist says as, like, the new perceived reality. It is only as strong as the recipient is willing. I mean, partially, and I think it's also based on how good the subject is at imagining that situation. Like, if you have a very strong and, like, creative imagination, and you're really good at visualizing stuff, I think that will make the suggestion stronger. Or, like, the perceived reaction will be stronger. And it is not permanent unless, the hypnotist in question decides to make it permanent. And also, your brain can choose to reject the idea of it being permanent, so even if your hypnotist is like, hey, I like how you act when you forget the number 6, what if we just make you forget the number 6 forever? Your brain could be like, no, that would impact my daily life, that's not going to work. And so, it would not be permanent. Generally speaking, anyway. Being hypnotized is basically as much of a skill as hypnotizing someone is. Yeah, they're both skills that you can practice.
An offering. Thank you so much.
Ah, thank you for the $5. Thank you. We're at 20 now. Thank you so much. It's permanent as long as it passes the vibe check. Exactly. Hypnosis is fun in the way that it just shows the power of the human mind, and also because you can do silly stuff, and doing silly stuff is fun. Exactly. I agree. It also helps to do multiple sessions to get permanent things to sink in. Very true. You can't get something to be permanent in the very first session. You have to work with someone and build rapport over several sessions before you could really start experimenting with permanent stuff, but, I mean, depending on how much you trust them to begin with, it could technically work right away, but, eh. I do think you need a lot of sessions to reinforce that idea. I do think it's interesting that you can get better at being a subject. I didn't assume it would work that way. Yeah, you can. It is a skill that you can practice. You can practice it by, like, self-hypnosis. You can practice it by, like, working directly with a hypnotist to get better. But both things are skills that you can practice. Yeah. So if you think that you're not a very good potential subject right now, you can practice and get better. That's another reason why I think that everyone can be hypnotized. It's just a matter of, like, choosing to get better at it. It's something that everyone can do. Practice in the mirror. Okay, you joke, but actually you can practice in the mirror, literally. You can literally practice in a mirror. So here's a bit of a fun thing for you. You know how I was talking earlier about eye fixation, right? So technically, you could stare at your own eyes in the mirror for a period of time and just kind of, like, zone out while staring directly into your own eyes and focusing on, like, just a spot in the mirror or, like, a spot in your reflection. And then just, like, in your head, you can, like, do, like, that slow countdown. You could do, like, your own relaxation thing. And then, you know, you could enter a trance that way. If I remember correctly, it took me, like, 2 years of listening to inductions for one to click. Yeah, that's because you have to find one that works for you. There's plenty of things online that you can use to, like, try and experience it. There's, like, stuff like that on YouTube. There's stuff like that on, like, other websites. And there's, like, tons of different styles. Some are more fast, some are more slow. You just have to find the style that, like, works for you, I think. And that can take a really long time. What's your personal favorite induction method? I really like conversational inductions. That's a style that I didn't really go over today, but I love conversational inductions. There's something very fun about just having a talk with somebody. Oh, thank you for the buddy. Pay no attention to the money being delivered to the cute Oni. Okay, I pretend I do not see it. Thank you. We know why that was donated. But no, there's something really fun about having a conversation with somebody and then being able to, like, slowly pull them in through that engagement of the conversation. And, like, working your way down into, like, that sense of, like, security. That, like, kind of soft state where, like, they're not particularly sure whether or not you're actually hypnotizing them or not until you, like, finally the mask comes off and you're just like, you walked right into my trap. Conversational inductions is in, like, covert inductions? Yeah, kinda. I try to be pretty upfront if I want to do a conversational induction, though. Covert, I think, relies on the surprise element or the fact that you don't know it's coming. I try to mention that I am going to be trying a conversational induction, just so, like, they know it's coming, just not the when. Personally, I like rapid or shock inductions more. They're quick, snappy, and you don't expect them. This is true. Rapid inductions are fun for that reason, and I think that some people like to cut out the slow side of a lot of induction methods, because many of the induction methods I mentioned are kind of slow, and then, you know, rapid induction is the opposite, where the goal is to make it fast. Oh, thank you for the gifted memberships! Thank you! Within this conversation, you will be hypnotized. You will. Parentheses, threatening. But yeah, there are some people who kind of want to, like, cut out the slow, more languid style of other inductions, which is why we have things like rapid or shock. Because it's just very quick and, like, you're instantly down in trance. Some people like that sort of, like, fast side of it. You can do that with triggers, too. I've never been hypnotized, but I know it works because of the kinds of people that dismiss it as quackery. Magic starts in the mind. I agree. There are a lot of people who dismiss it as just, like, not being real at all, but I think it can be real. Well, because I've experienced both sides of it, I know that it's real. It's just something that, like, you have to be open to it. If you're not open to it, it's not going to work, and it's just going to be, like, confirmation bias, basically. But, yeah. I do think that it is real. Because of ADHD, longer inductions tend to not work on me unless I really trust the hypnotist or I'm very focused on whatever combo we're having. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, too. I've worked with a lot of people who are like, I have ADHD, or I have issues focusing, or I'm too in my head. I don't think I can be hypnotized because of this. And I'm just like, no, you can. No, you can. You just gotta find the method that works for you. The thing is, there's a lot of inductions out there that are too long, and that's why your brain gets distracted. You would need to find audio files or like videos or like other types of methods that are much shorter, and then it would work much more easily for you. Or, you know, working with an in-person hypnotist, they would be able to do more rapid inductions that would probably work better for your brain. You know, took that as a challenge. Yeah, I mean, I've worked with people who have said that it would be really hard to be hypnotized, and I'm usually pretty good at proving to them that that is not true. I legit think ADHD makes being hypnotized easier. Confusion inductions work like a charm on me. That's fair. Confusion inductions are difficult for me to do personally. I think that is my weak point. So I try to, I don't want to say I avoid it, but I know that it is a weakness of mine. I don't think I'm very good at them. I'm good at, like, most other methods, but confusion is actually hard. You have to be really good in order to be able to pull that one off. I think my issue is that trying to make a confusing induction also makes me confused. You end up confusing yourself. Yeah, it hurt itself with its confusion. Because I have tried it before, and it just did not work the way that I wanted it to. But it also doesn't work on me when it comes to me being hypnotized, so that might also be part of it. I think a lot of times the things that I am strong in are things that I know are effective on me. So, like, text-based, because I love to read and I love getting absorbed in books. Eye fixation, because I like staring at pretty pendants and pretty jewels. Voices, I love listening to voices. I love nice voices, so a lot of audio inductions work really well for me. Are there any good resources for hypnotizing people? There are several books. I'm sure you could find a number of books on the subject. I can't think of specific titles offhand, but there are plenty of books on the subject. There are other videos on the subject. There are a few creators online who have made, like, not like tutorials, but they've, like, talked about it more in depth and done, like, Hypnosis 101 type streams. Does Molly Moon count very scientific? Don't even mention Molly Moon to me. Molly Moon book 1, pretty close to realistic. Book 2 onwards, what is that bullshittery? What is that nonsense? What are those shenanigans? What do you mean she can stop time by staring at a crystal? What the fuck? Absolutely not. That's not true. That's not how that works. I could go on. Molly Moon book 20, she becomes a VTuber. Literally, I wouldn't be surprised. Huh? What? I can't use hypnosis to travel to the Big Bang to achieve eternal youth. No, you can't. Hypnosis can turn you into Dio, allegedly. According to Molly Moon's incredible book of hypnotism, book 2, Molly Stops the World. Unfortunately. I feel like I could say any two words random and it would be a book title, and also Yuno will have read it. That is the strongest read that I have ever been dished out ever since I started streaming. What the fuck is Molly Moon? So Molly Moon is a children's book that is a series of books about a orphan child named Molly Moon who, through through a series of events, she stumbles into a library and gets to find a book that's all about how to hypnotize. Some of the sections of the book are ripped out, so she's only able to learn certain ones, but basically, she learns hypnotism to get out of the bad situation that she's in an orphanage, and she, like, improves the lives of the other children there before she leaves, but then she, like, goes to New York, and she hypnotizes people to get a lot of money, and basically tries to, like, make her life better, in pursuit of her childhood friend, Rocky, who also, unbeknownst to her, learned hypnosis, but, like, learned the opposite modality. Like, she learned all the stuff about eye fixation, he learned all the stuff about, voice inductions. And it's just the two of them, being in New York, hanging out. Yeah. So yeah, the first book I think is pretty close to real with how the, how do I word this? I think it was pretty close to real life with how some of the hypnosis methods worked. One scene that really, like, sticks out in my brain from book 1 is, where she hypnotizes the mean lunch lady by stirring a pot of soup. She hypnotizes her by using the wooden spoon as the fixation object, and she's, like, rhythmically stirring the soup. That one sticks out in my head a lot. She also manages to hypnotize a retina scanner. Now, see, that was BS. There's no way that that should have worked. Retina scanners don't have a brain, especially not at the time that that book was written. They were not powered by AI. What do you mean? At least not in a way that would allow it to have independent thoughts. Was that book your intro to hypnosis? No, my intro was like Jungle Book, Pokemon episodes that had hypnotism in them, because there were several of those. I remember the, I think it was the third movie, the one with Entei, where he hypnotizes Ash's mom into becoming the mom for the girl who lost her dad. I remember that one, even though that wasn't a very good example. And there was, like, other cartoons and stuff that had a lot of hypnosis in them. One that really sticks out to me is there was an episode of Powerpuff Girls where Blossom gets hypnotized. She gets hypnotized by this, like, zombie magician character. For some reason, that scene sticks out in my brain a lot. So it's one of those series where the thing, in this case hypnosis, is the hammer for every nail no matter what? Yes, basically. It was meant to be like a good wish fulfillment book for kids. And like I said, book 1 is really, really, it's like based in reality, the Molly Moon book, I mean. But then you get to book 2, and that's where you discover the whole, if you have a fixation object, like a crystal, particularly this color of crystal, if you stare at it with your hypnotic eye powers, then you can freeze time, and then commit atrocities. And I'm like, you can what? Sorry, you can what? You can who? And then book 3, it's the same process, except you can time travel with a different crystal. And I'm like, huh? And apparently there were more books after that, but I didn't read those. Atrocities? Yes, because the main villain was, like, committing crimes because he could stop time with his hypnosis powers. But then you found out that he was actually hypnotized to become a crime person, and he has to be unhypnotized in order to, stop doing that. It was wild. I have, book 2. I think I also have book 1 in, like, my closet somewhere. But I have book 2 on my shelf. Molly Moon Stops the World, I mean. But yeah, those books are Wild. The more you know. But yeah, I think that's kind of the gist of what a hypnosis session would be like. Going back to the topic from before we got into the weeds with media. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to ask them now. You can make someone believe time was frozen, but I don't think you can stop time by staring at a crystal. Yeah, no. The idea was that you could literally stop time. It wasn't just like a perception. You literally could. To which I was just like, huh? How? Why? I think that author really made hypnosis into like a superpower during that. What are your thoughts on catalepsy? Indifferent. I mean, it gets back into the argument of, like, depth of trance. I don't really know how many people can actually enter the cataleptic state. I feel like a lot of it is kind of exaggerated. At least, like, portrayals of it. Indifferent. Any particular suggestion you like? Either being under said suggestion or giving someone said suggestion. I personally like sense heightening. I like the idea of like simulating the experience of being like too hot or too cold. One of my favorite stage hypnosis suggestions is when you can get the audience to like imagine that they, or the subjects I mean, to imagine that they are in like a movie theater and they're watching like a really funny movie or a really sad movie, and it's interesting to see like what their reactions are when you get them to simulate that experience, like where they're happy enough to be like laughing so hard their stomach hurts, or where they're like close to tears from how emotional the movie is making them, like this imaginary movie in their brains. I think those are really cool, and it's also a really cool way to like understand more about a subject's imagination. So I like playing around with the senses. Or like making people perceive things that aren't actually there. I just like seeing how a person's imagination works. Do you think my partner would play along if I tell them I like hypnosis or getting hypnotized? Depends on how you approach it. I don't think you should talk about it with the intention that they're going to immediately want to do that with you. I think you should be like, hey, have you ever wondered about this thing? And then you two should try to explore it together. If you can make it an experience that you're just inviting them into and you're doing it equally, I think that would be better than just expecting your partner to do something. What is the potential danger of hypnosis? For example, breaking someone's mind. Do I know you said it hinders daily life? The danger is going to be if someone who has earned your trust ever tries to abuse it in any way. That is the danger, I think. I've talked a lot about how most hypnosis doesn't really work unless you have rapport with the person you're working with. Some people could take advantage of that rapport and then use it to make you do things you wouldn't normally. It's like a big argument within the hypnosis community is like, who is responsible for those situations? I personally think that a hypnotist has to be the responsible one in those situations, because letting someone give suggestions to your subconscious is a very vulnerable feeling. So I think that hypnotists need to be more responsible with how they handle themselves, and they have to be more willing to like work in tandem with their subjects. I don't think enough people do that. Again, there's this assumption that the hypnotist is the one with all the power in the situation, and that's just not true. I think the subject has just as much, if not more, power, because ultimately a hypnotist should be trying to cater to what the subject wants, personally. So, I think that's where the danger comes in, because if your hypnotist is not willing to take responsibility for what happens, then that could really, like, upset someone. And there is such a thing as an abreaction. I didn't talk about this, but, if you snap out of a trance because you receive a suggestion you don't like, that could cause something called an abreaction, where you are forced out of the trance state and it causes you to experience a negative drop. It could basically be like, it would feel similarly to waking up from a nightmare, where, like, your heart, your stomach kind of drops and, like, your heart's racing, and it can basically elicit, like, a panic response. Abreactions are something you should be trying to avoid if you are a hypnotist, because obviously you want your partner to feel safe, but the abreaction is the thing that, like, kicks in. It's like that back door that opens up to protect you. And, like, it will protect you, but it will also make you feel very bad. So, something to keep in mind. If you did something like that, would they be able to remember what happened in the movie? Potentially. It depends on how vivid their imagination really was. They might have envisioned two different movies, or there's a chance they watched the same movie and then there was just two different scenes in it. There's a chance, maybe? I don't really know many people who have thought to ask what the movie was. They might have a vague idea of what the scene might have been. Like if they particularly cry whenever a dog dies in a movie or something. So maybe something like that. How many actually know about your mute snaps? I mean, everyone in that particular classroom. I also have often told a lot of people that I work with that I'm not very good at snapping my fingers, so most people know. Does the normal trance work more like a dream? It will feel like a dream to the person who is hypnotized. It will feel like you are dreaming and you're just kind of doing whatever because you're in a dream and no one cares, basically. Not very good at snapping, which means they think you have a chance of doing it. No! I usually say it in the context of I can't do it. I just say I'm not good at it, and then they're like, what do you mean you're not good at it? And I'm like, I literally can't do it! My fingers are incapable! World's most useless facts with Yuno. Can't snap her freaking fingers. I can't snap my fingers either. If I was a hypnotist, I would just clap my hands. Honestly, valid. This is a long con shock induction. She's gonna convince us she can't, and then one day she'll snap them. No, no, no. If anything, I would maybe do it with the clicker and, like, pretend that I snapped, but no. I am very honest. I think that, one of the benefits of at least working with me as a hypnotist is that I am very upfront about what I can and can't do. I'm also very upfront about my personal limits when it comes to, having sessions. You can do anything as long as you set your mind to it. No, I literally can't snap. I'm telling you, I watched video tutorials. It didn't happen. It's not going to happen. My hand will not allow it. It's just not possible. I'm literally sitting here trying to do it right now and it's not working. If you watch the videos muted, you might be following silent instructions. Shut up! Shut up, dude! That's messed up. Ooh, you're going to snap your fingers. Now, there is a misconception about hypnosis that you just go, ooh, you're going to do this. I never understood why that was one of the perceptions. It's just like a parody of like how a hypnotist's voice sounds. The ooh is important, allegedly. Dracula movie, Sally? Really? I didn't know that. I didn't realize it was specifically because of Dracula. I hate when they go, ooh, it's so annoying. I agree. Oh, now you're going to talk in a funny Hollywood hypnotist voice. Ooh. Silly. But yeah, no, I can at least tell you that, like, most hypnotists don't talk like that. But I feel like that should be a given, because I showed you what my hypnotist voice sounds like, and it doesn't sound like that. That said, whenever hypnosis-adjacent memes or trends appear on social media, I always side-eye them. I'm just like, do they know? Do they know? Are they aware? Okay. Well, that is the Hypnosis OniMon, I suppose. I might do a follow-up to this in the future. We might talk about, like, other aspects of hypnotism, perhaps. But I think this was a good, general overview. I had fun talking about this, as is made obvious by the everything that I talked about. I do really like this subject. It's a lot of fun. Perhaps I will talk about it more in the future, but thank you for sticking around and listening to my very silly rambles from this silly little Oni. I honestly do really like hypnotism. It's a very fun subject to talk about. Yay, I'm glad you guys liked it. Thank you very much for coming in, to all of the new people. Thank you again, Nami, for the raid. Thank you for sticking around, Hiroji. But yeah, hypnosis is fun. Would recommend. I hope you are interested and might research it more in the future. Okay, I'm going to wrap up now. As we all know, this is my dinner time, and this Oni is hungry. Let's see. Where do we go? Ooh, someone's playing Project Diva. I'm sending you over there. You're going over there. Assuming they're gonna still be going. I hope so. But yeah, thank you so much for hanging out with me. Tomorrow we're gonna be playing Spiritfarer. Again, we'll be going back to Spiritfarer, hanging out with the toxic grandma Astrid and the gang. Wednesday we'll be doing Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog. That'll also be fun. I hope you guys have a good rest of your time zone. And until I see you again, Minotsu!